Alright, so we're going to start this video with just some pictures at first because I have the machine apart. So, I spotted this vorwerk Vk130 on eBay, and I was like, a clean air vorwerk in the States? I mean, it's happened before, but the sellers always had them marked as, 220 or 240 volts or whatever they are. But it's like, I was rather curious about this, so I sent a message to the seller asking him if it was 120 because I hadn't seen a unit of this age in the States. And he responded with, it has a standard plug, and when I plug it in, it runs. Well, that wasn't the case. And if we look at the plug-in here, I didn't notice this until after I had taken it apart. If we could just get it to focus. There we go. Yeah. 250 volts. But it's like, when this unit arrived, I took a look at it because I wanted to figure out if this was US voltage or not. And I could not read this label. Oh, sure, now. Much harder to read with just your eyes, but yeah, you can see it here. Maybe, the dirt had something to do with it too. But anyways, I couldn't read that, so I took it apart. It's like I wanted to know what the voltage on here was. And then I came across this on the motor, and it's like, oh shit. It does run when it's attached to 110 or 110, 120, whatever. We'll just say US voltage and European voltage. But it runs pretty poorly, and I can't imagine it's good for any of the electronic components to be running on the incorrect voltage. So I kind of sat there thinking, well, what do I want to do with this? I thought about maybe looking for a 120 or a US voltage motor, but it has a weird little, almost tear-shaped, like a little tear-shaped piece on the back right here. And I think that would have made it difficult to find something in that size. And, it's also a fairly small motor, too. So I don't know if I could have done that. And, of course, I would have had to have given up some of the features to it, like the soft start, the speed control, all that stuff. And it's just like, I don't think this is going to work. So it's like, I just messaged the seller, and I'm like, hey, we have a problem. This is European voltage. If you run it off, US voltage, you could likely damage, the electronic components, like the circuit board or the motor. And I sent him, the photo I had of the motor here. I had asked him, do you even want this back? Because, there have been some cases where I bought things and they were broken. Like, I bought an Electrolux 1521 Marquis, which had a bad motor. The seller didn't know it had a bad motor. So when I went to return it, they're like, just keep it. And they refunded me for it. In this case, the offer he made to me was, how about you just pay for the shipping cost and I'll refund you for the item cost? And I'm like, well, all right. I figured even if I can't use the machine, it did come with some tools that I could use for my 120 or 122. But then the more and more I thought about this, I do have a European voltage outlet right here for the air conditioner. So it got me thinking, what if I got an adapter of some sort? So I posted to Reddit and I asked a question about this. I don't know a lot about electrical things, so I just asked, I'm like, so I have a European voltage machine, can I run it off this outlet? And then, of course, it's going to have to I'm gonna have to get, well, the guy told me that I definitely should put a 16, or no, a 6-15 plug on it, which will have the sideways blades instead of getting an adapter, because, you know, I think he was thinking I would leave the adapter in that 615 outlet and somebody would plug something 120 into there and fry it. But it's like, you know, I don't really want to cut this end off, you know, and then put an ugly plug on it. So it's like, you know, I'm just going to keep the adapter with this machine. I should be the only person using this machine, like, ever, so I'm not that concerned about it. But it's like yesterday, I ran into a new issue. See, this thing, you know, being a used machine, covered with scuffs and dirt and whatever, and so I took everything apart. But yeah, I took everything apart here, and I never really understood how the speed control in this thing worked. You know, I just knew there was this little lever here that would move, you know, you'd move it all the way up there, and then you could slide it down for more power. But after I had washed it and after everything had dried, the only thing it would do is turn off and on anymore. So it's like, I bet that the connector that was here was more than just a connector. It's like I figured, you know, the speed control would be built into the circuit board, but when we look at the board, there's really not much to it. And I was like, oh shit. So I'm sitting there, you know, trying to figure out how to take this thing apart. You know, this assembly was, well, yeah, you'd be in there like that. And this, you know, top part I thought might come apart. It doesn't. You have to push the little piece in here to get it over this lip, and then you have to push it down and out. And while there's still a fair amount of available parts for this thing, you can actually still get like these body parts for it. You can't get this, and you can't get this. So I'm sitting here like, oh my god, great. You know, I can't, you know, I wouldn't want to run a machine on just its lowest speed, because that's what it was running at. But it's like, fortunately, this does still work. It's like I tried it out yesterday, so maybe it getting wet had something to do with, you know, that. But very simplistic, but it's also very different from like the normal switches I'm used to dealing with. Just the let's see if we can get this in here. Okay, we can see the springs under there, and we see that the contacts are actually not touching. And when we pull this back, they're touching. But when we shut it off, again, you know, these are kind of a wedge-shaped thing. They get under there, they lift that up and away from there. Isn't that strange? But yeah, can't find a replacement part for this anywhere. But this one is working, but I'm now waiting for some fader lube or fader grease, which should apparently work well for this sort of thing. I have no idea how this works. No idea. I'm just glad it still does work. Because it's like when I had this thing apart, you know, it's like then I tried it, and I mean, after I had cleaned the grease out of there, cleaned this out with alcohol, it worked fine. So there is hope yet. But I still need to find a power head. So, yep. Just kind of playing the waiting game now until things show up, and hopefully we'll have a new, well, not new, but hopefully we'll have an old vorwerk to show you guys.